Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Mainly Hoops podcast, where we're covering some more Big 12 transfer portal news. We've got TCU we're talking about today. TCU made a couple moves, nothing too crazy, but how do we feel overall about TCU's transfer portal offseason? Cody, we'll start with you.
I think they took a little bit of a different route as opposed to what Jamie Dixon usually does. I mean, I think they took a little bit more of the offensive route as opposed to, going with more defense. I mean, guys that are walking out the door, Frankie Collins, Rashawn Ouellette, Trezarian White, Wenzel and Reynolds aren't really defensive pieces, but he usually has more athletic wings, more like bigger guards, and that's not really the route he took here. He brought in guys like Brock Harding and Jaden Pierre, who are classified as smaller guards, especially Harding. He's 6 foot, 165. More of a pass first guard, provides a little bit of defensive playmaking upside, which is something that'll fit with the TCU system. But on the wing, they didn't really get their prototypical guys in the portal that are sort of two-way, like kind of rim reliant guards that love to play in transition and will D up on ball. They don't really have that this season. Like guys like Lelovicius from Oregon State and Tanner Toolson from Utah Valley. They're more floor spacers, more movement shooters. I think Toolson is probably the better prospect and will probably end up starting over Lelovicius. But they'll both be floor spacers for guys like Harding and Pierre. That'll be the primary creators for this offense. And then off the bench, a guy like, Xavier Edmonds, I think, is probably the highest upside guy. They signed him early in the early 2024 season, and he didn't end up playing at all last season. So, JUCO guy from Salt Lake Community College, he probably has the most upside of anybody here. A more physical four-man that has his pretty versatile game. So, I think it'll kind of depend on how he developed. He might end up working his way into the starting lineup. Has some perimeter touch as well. So I'm interested to see. I haven't watched a ton on him. There's not really much out there. It's hard to find film on Salt Lake Community College. So, but he was rated as the number 2 JUCO recruit according to 24/7. So I think they're going to expect fairly big things out of him. And yeah, I'm excited to see how he pans out.
Would you say it was a down year for TCU in the transfer portal?
I think it was.
I think that really remains to be seen, honestly. I think like Cody said, they took a different route. They went guards here with Jaden Pierre, Brock Harding. I don't know. I don't really like what it means for them. I mean, defensively especially, I don't really like it. Their front court's not super deep either. I mean, they brought in Saludicum, or however you really pronounce it, from FIU.
Salachum, I think.
Yeah, I mean, he's really like their, I guess, going to be their anchor defensively, probably at this point. Like Ernest Uday left. He's their only guy taller than 6'9". At 6'11", he averaged about 2 blocks a game last year. So they're probably going to need that with 2 smaller guards up top that aren't exactly like defensive stoppers. Brock Harding coming over from Iowa, where defense was pretty optional. I think that might genuinely be being nice. But
that was being nice.
I don't really love the portal moves. I'm not super high on Jaden Pierre or Brock Harding. I think they're fine. But I think it's going to lead to what we'll get to here in a minute, our expectations for TCU not being super high.
Mm-hmm. Do we see these guys kind of as role guys or in the starting lineup?
Harding and Pierre are going to be it's going to be the starting backcourt along, and Lelovicius and Toolson. They'll be in the top 6 most likely. I mean, TCU, they brought in they have a lot of their forwards retained from last year. A lot of the freshmen, like David Punch, who played a role, he played 20 minutes a game. He can play some small ball 5. He did that a little bit last season. I mean, he's only 6'7", but a bigger forward. And then Malik Diallo coming back, Micah Robinson, and Jace Posey. They're all going to play somewhat of a role, if not like probably all 15 to 20 minutes. And like you said with Salichom, he's probably going to be their best defensive anchor, probably the best rim protector on this roster. He'll split time with Diallo. I'd probably say they're going to be a 20-minute split, maybe 15 minutes apiece.
Yeah.
Something like that. But yeah, like again with the guards, I think Harding and Pierre are going to lead the way for this offense. I think Pierre is the more talented guard. I think he's probably going to average the most points per game on this team, probably close to 14 or 15. He's not going to do it in the most efficient way, but I do think his dribble creation is something that they're going to need because Harding is more of a pass first guard, has to operate in pick and roll to really create his value. He's not really going to break the defense down in isolation or really find his way to the rim, even in transition. He's just not that talented of a scorer. So overall, I think Pierre is probably the best guy they got.
What's the floor and what's the ceiling for this TCU team next season?
Ceiling 12th in the Big 12. Floor, bottom. I don't know. I don't really see. I feel like they're pretty solidified in like that bottom quarter of the Big 12.
Yeah. Cody, do you agree?
I'd say the ceiling is like probably somewhere in the middle of the pack, maybe a little bit higher than 12, maybe 8 or 9, just because there's a lot of teams in this league with a decent amount of roster turnover, a decent amount of teams that didn't do a lot of great things in the portal. And yeah, I mean, their floor is it's low. I mean, I don't think it's the bottom because I think Colorado and Arizona State are like pretty solidified to being at the bottom. So I would say, what are there 16 teams in this league? I'd say 14 is probably the floor for them. But I do like that Jamie Dixon's trying to emphasize the offense a little bit. An offense that was outside of the top 150 in adjusted offensive efficiency per Torvik. They were a great defense last year. They were a top 25 defense, and I think they're going to be okay on that side of the ball with some of the forwards that they retain. They have a lot of interchangeable guys on this roster. So, yeah, I'll say the floor is higher. I'll say 13 is the floor, and ceiling's not really there because I don't love the talent that he brought in, especially on the perimeter.
Any final thoughts for these guys?
Nothing else from me.
Nothing?
Go Frogs.
All right. Thank you guys for listening to the Mainly Hoops podcast, and we'll be back with another Big 12 transfer portal episode.